Hey, it's great to see you've taken serious action to fixing that knee pain. Now, pause the video. If you haven't got a pen and paper ready, you'll need to take some notes. It's important you note which of the knee pains you identify with and practice the exercises while they're fresh in your mind. If you have time and space around you, pause the video when you get to the certain exercise, have a practice. If you don't have time at the moment, take a note of when that exercise is in the video so that you can go back and practice them in a more suitable location. Right, buckle your seatbelts. You're about to learn a whole bunch of new tools which you can use to prevent knee pain, fix knee pain, actually help you run faster and more efficiently for the rest of your life. Enjoy.
Yeah, knee pain is probably one of the most popular things that I hear people tell me about when I'm talking to people in the gym, especially. You know, they're on a cross trainer or on a bike, and they'll say, "No, I can't run. I've got sore knees, and whenever I run, my knees hurt." So, you know, it's a problem for a lot of people, and there are different types of knee pain that we get. Seems like every angle there's a different pain you can get for your knees. So obviously we've got Kate in to explain the anatomy and lots more, and I'll be taking you through a few demonstrations for exercises you can do and ways you can relieve tension on them.
Okay. So, knee joint. It is made up of femur and your tibia. Your fibula sits just off the side, so we don't tend to count that one as part of the knee joint. It's also got a second joint, which is your patellofemoral joint, which is where your kneecap rubs against your femur, which is your big thigh bone. This joint is a really, really terrible shape. If you ever actually look at a knee joint, it's actually got a spike that sticks up through the bottom of it, that if there wasn't any meniscus around it, which is the cartilage that protects the joint, it would actually hurt. It would just poke at you. So because the two bones don't sit very well together, they shift around all over the place, we have patches of meniscus in there, which is the cartilage of the knee. It makes the joint a better shape. It gives the joint shock absorption, which is what enables us to jump and hop and not smack bone against bone. To hold the joint in place, we have a series of ligaments. You have got the two big ones that everybody's heard of, which is your ACL and your PCL. Anterior cruciate ligament and your posterior cruciate ligament. They cross over at the back of the joint, and they control how far forward and backwards the femur and the tibia move on each other. You've then got your collateral ligaments, which are the medial and the lateral, depending upon the side of the knee. Their job is to sit on the side here, and they control the motion of the joint and stop it turning too far in and too far out. The main thing that you need to know about a knee joint is that it is a hinge joint. It moves forwards and backwards. We are able to make it pivot in and out. It's not recommended. It's not what the joint is designed to do. It sits in between two very mobile joints. So you've got the ball and socket joint at the hip, and you've got the talocrural joint at the ankle. They're very mobile. They're designed to be nice mobile joints that allow the knee joint to then just travel through in a nice hinged pattern. You can see where I'm going with this already, can't you? It's going to be a relationship above and below. So most of the time that people come into me and they say, "I've got pain in my knee," if they're a runner, they go, "Got pain in my knee, it's about here." Okay? They always tend to point to the outside of the knee. That's the most common one. Reason that we get a pain in the outside of the knee, several different reasons. It's either your bum or it's your foot. You saw that coming, didn't you? There is a small element that it could be your posture as well, so don't worry, that'll be in there too. So, the biggest reason that you've got pain on the outside of your knee is you've got this huge flat tendon called your iliotibial band. Everybody heard of this guy? Everyone tried to foam roller this guy? Yeah, you've met him. So he comes down the outside and attaches just below your knee. Okay? He's made up of glute max, which is one of your big muscles of your bum, and tensor fasciae latae, which is a little guy that sits at the front. They wind round, and it's a big flat tendon that comes down. It's very, very hard to stretch because it's a tendon, which is why we recommend that you foam roll it, but don't over roll it. It's often a very stressed area, which I'll explain to you in a minute, so you can roll it too much, inflame it, and make the problem worse. So if you're getting on the foam roller and it's not getting any better, that's when it's time to change tack a little bit. Okay? So the iliotibial band is usually the source of runner's knee pain. It's an insertional inflammatory problem. It's pulling against the bone lower down in your knee because you're moving your leg in a way that the hinge joint is not designed to do. So what we often see when we video our runners is that you come through, you bring your leg through, you let your pelvis drop, your foot lands in front of you, you then collapse across, your knee shoots in, you swing this leg round and plonk it in front of you. This poor knee on the back is not working as a hinge joint. It's got this real collapse to it, okay? Two factors that are going to cause that. Weakness in your bum that's causing pelvis to drop, which means that as you're bringing your leg through and it drops, you're going to land in what I like to call America's Next Top Model position, because this is where you've got one foot and you're sashaying down the road, okay? You want to try and work on getting that foot to land in line with your leg, because your knee joint is governed by what the joints above and below do. So if this one's misbehaving, this one doesn't have any choice but to follow on, okay? The other problem that we often see is nice strong pelvis. People come through, they say, I've been really, really working my bum, they plant their foot, they land on the outside of their foot, they then collapse through on the inside, and it's that dropping motion that gives the shearing force through and starts to pull that iliotibial band against that knee. Most runners will identify this pain as a bit of a niggle, and they'll say, it's all right, I'll run through it. They get home, take a couple of ibuprofen, gets a bit better, they think, oh, won't worry about it. They go out again, doesn't take as long for that knee to get sore, keep running through it, seems okay, repeat the cycle. Eventually it gets to the stage that you're not very far into your run before it starts to get sore, and that pain stops sitting around a 3 or a 4 out of 10 and it starts getting quite high up. At that point, what you've done is inflamed the lining of the bone. That's when you come and see me, because all of a sudden ibuprofen doesn't cut it, and I say, you need to stop running. So, Connor's going to teach you a few exercises that you can do before you get to the nasty physio point where we say no.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we should all be rolling our RT bands even before we've got knee pain, but if we start to get knee pain on the outside, then your IT band foam roller is your first port of call. We don't have a roller today, but I'm pretty confident I can demonstrate it without. So if you imagine the roller is on my thigh on the outside, and I can bring this leg in front, and we're basically just rolling forward and back. With any rolling, I like to first spend a bit of time, a good 30 seconds, just hunting down the tight spots in the muscle before then starting to zero in and really get in a little bit deeper. If it's knee pain we're dealing with, then we want to start higher up on the thigh to relieve tension on the lower half, where often that's where it's tighter. Okay, so I'm going to first look at rolling higher up, so upstream of the injury, and then a little bit closer down, and that's, hopefully that'll make it a little bit easier. We want to stretch your IT bands. We've mentioned it. It's hard to stretch. It's hard to feel a stretch. I think we can definitely lengthen it, and therefore it is being stretched. But we just don't necessarily feel it the same way as we might when we stretch a calf or a hamstring. You get that pulling sensation. So an easy option, down on one knee. We can take, this is like your standard hip flexor stretch, but if we take this foot across the line a bit, it's going to enable us to push this hip out a bit wider. Okay, and then if we've got something to help us balance, then we can take the hand up, and we're effectively stretching right from the tips of our fingers down to the knee, or down where the IT band connects. Okay, now you can very easily make this too strong a stretch, okay, especially if you've already got pain in there. So you probably just want to start off with more of a hip flexor stretch and just see how that feels before just taking the knee a little bit the hip a little bit wider to increase the tension through there. Okay, but if you've done your rolling first, that'll loosen some slack, and then the stretching should get a little bit easier. Glutes is another area we want to be rolling just to get the knots out of there. So if we've got the foam roller underneath the right glute, I'll have the left foot on the floor, and basically I'm just rolling my glute right underneath that right butt cheek. Okay, so this position puts a bit of length into the muscle. It's huge. It's we know it's one of the biggest muscles we've got. So we need to hunt down the different tight spots. Okay, just because it's quite compact, doesn't have the length of the quad. There are lots of different elements, up, down, left and right. So do make sure you hunt down all those spots, and then you'll want to stretch. Follow up with a stretch, So standard one, just hugging the knee in close to the chest, sitting up nice and tall. There's loads of different variations on this. You can do my favorite, which is putting your feet up on a wall, wrapping the other knee over the top. So if my left knee was against a wall, then this would be a very easy stretch to hold, just making sure I'm keeping the tailbone on the floor. And then as the stretch sort of loosens off, we can take the knee slowly down the wall, which then pushes this ankle further up towards my chest and increasing the stretch back here. So that's some ideas for loosening tension in the lateral knee. But that's the long-term solution. Part of the long-term solution is we've also got to provide strength and stability to that muscle as well. Okay, so we've demonstrated your lateral wall squat, where we might have a wall here and a ball, and we're just doing a single leg squat where I'm leaning against the ball or against the wall, and the muscle in the glute is made to work to stop the knee from collapsing inwards and to stop me from falling into the wall and to stop this hip from dropping as well. Okay, so it's a really good one for stability. Any single leg deadlift type exercise. So again, we're standing on one foot, getting the pelvis tucked under. With all of these, you want to get the pelvis tucked under at the top of the rep. Okay, balancing on one foot, clenching the glute. Okay, and we're trying to hold that glute contraction as we start to lean over and keeping the knee relatively straight. Okay, we're not looking to put any real pressure through here. We're trying to use the glute. We're coming down with a nice flat back, and you'll feel a bit of stretch in the hamstring and come back up. Okay, so it's clench the butt, come down slow, making sure we're leaning over, not hunching over. Okay, and it's surprising that this is actually the area that you'll feel that exercise. It's a really good one. So here, these are sort of stability exercises. We've got your hip raise on the floor as well, which is good, but that's, it's not going to get the outside of the glute as much. For a different kind of form, a more dynamic form of stability, we've got that lateral bound. So where we're actually coming across and the glute is effectively catching us and then powering us back off each repetition. All right, so that's a good one to do once you've done your maybe a few weeks of the more slow, careful glute exercises.
Okay. One of my favorite ones that I like to give out to my athletes involves a step. Don't have one, so I'm going to demonstrate without. So one of the things that you'll see, and women, again, we are terrible for this compared to our male counterparts, we like to bring our knees a little bit across the center of our body as we're coming down the stairs. So you often see women, and we pop down and our knees are crossing over in front of us. So when you get to the bottom step, what I'd like to get people to do is to just really slowly lower their foot down and try and touch their heel on the next step, and then slowly come back up again. You'll be amazed how your knee just wants to collapse in, or as my gentlemen like to do, you go, this is easy, because you stick your bums out to the side. Okay, so as you're going up and down the stairs, just be really mindful of how you're coming down, and think about the alignment of that knee so that you're actually strengthening that knee during your functional tasks during the day as well. Okay, it doesn't take very many of those to realize that it's a bit of a problem area. It also will highlight to you whether you've got too much tightness in your quads. So that brings us nicely on to the next pain that you're commonly seeing in the knee, which is what's called anterior knee pain. Okay, so anterior is the front of the body, so it refers to pretty much any pain around the front of the knee. This usually is referring to the patellofemoral joint, so it's the relationship between your kneecap and your femur. Your kneecap is governed by muscles. It's a floating bone. It doesn't really have a big ligamentous attachment. Some people refer to your patella ligament. It's a patella tendon. It's just got different names because of the role that it plays. It's just interchangeable. So your kneecap should sit in a nice little groove. It's actually pyramid shaped, so it's round on the top, pyramid shaped on the bottom, and it sits in a little groove on your femur. It should slide up and down like a train in a track beautifully as you move your joint through a hinge joint position. Okay. The muscle that controls the movement is the lateral vastus on the outside of your quad, and the medial vastus, VMO, he's called, on the inside of your quad. This guy is quite small compared to the guy on the outside. So we already have a bit of an anatomical disadvantage when it comes to controlling our kneecaps. We also tend to be creatures that are very flexion based. Our eyes are on the front of our head, everything we do is in front of us. We tend to prefer to use our quads over our glutes and our hamstrings. So we tend to be set to be a little bit short and tight through our quads anyway, which just holds that kneecap a little bit closer to the bone underneath. So we get away with that as long as we're moving that knee in a hinge joint position. As soon as we start to add a little bit of a rotation or a little bit of a collapse, or if we're in the temptation to turn our foot out a little bit, which makes us use the muscles on the outside of the leg a little bit more, what happens then is we gain strength on the outside of the leg, lose strength on the inside. So rather than that kneecap running nicely in its groove, it starts to jump out of the groove. Often people will come to me and say, I've got a really clicky knee. It doesn't hurt, but it's clicky. That noise is your kneecap not staying in its groove. It precedes pain because it takes irritation of that cartilage on the back of your kneecap before it starts to hurt. Okay? One of the big problems that we've got with knees is that the cartilage doesn't have a very good blood supply and it doesn't have a very good nerve supply. So it is very, very slow to heal. It also doesn't generally produce a pain response. So it takes a lot of irritation of that area before you'll get enough inflammatory chemical that your body will actually check in and say, there's a problem here. Even when it has checked in, it's not automatic that it's going to go and start the healing process there because it hasn't been triggered quickly enough. So you can actually irritate your knee quite a lot before you become aware that there's a problem. So that's why these little functional tasks such as going down the stairs, and if you get a click every time you do, that's when you need to check in and say, right, how long are my quads? When was the last time I actually tried taking my hip behind me and bending up my knee? Can I achieve that position? Does my hamstring cramp? Because it's been so long since it's been in that position, it's not sure what to do anymore. So it's a good way to check in with yourself and make sure that you know what's going on before the pain kicks in. Okay? So anterior knee pain is usually irritation of the patella as it's moving in and out of its groove. It is very, very commonly fixed by lengthening your quads off. The other one that we need to do is to strengthen the hamstrings and the glutes. Okay, so I'm always going on about my pulley systems. So muscles work in pairs. As one's lengthening, one's shortening. You should have this beautiful pulley system. A lot of people achieve the wonderful pull and release system. So you work your quad and don't worry about your hamstring. You don't tend to worry about what's behind you. Okay?
Yeah.
So, do you want to go over a few stretches and strength things for that one?
For the quads, yeah. Yeah. So guys, obviously another important one is your quad foam roller. So we'll be down on the front. If I'm rolling up the right leg, I'm basically coming, so I have the knee out wide, I'm just coming forward and back. Okay, again we're starting upstream, so up by the hip first, and then bring the roller further down, closer to the knee, to get into the tight spots around here. Now, you know, you've got, it's a really big muscle, it's obviously a very different shape to the glute, but you've got a diagonal each way and you've got straight down the middle. A lot of people will do straight down the middle and they'll do their IT bands, but they'll forget about these two muscles that you've talked about, isn't it? Yeah, the lateral and the medial. So we can't forget those. You know, if you've been neglecting them, first time you jump on them, you'll hit the roof because they can really hurt. No. So then after having rolled that area, we're then looking to stretch it off. So similar to a hip flexor stretch, if you are really tight through here, this will be enough to stretch out your hip flexor, just tucking the pelvis under, kneeling nice and tall. But if you've got a little bit of length there, you just need to elevate this back foot. Okay, so it can be a step, which would go underneath my toe, even a wall. So we can use a post as our wall. I'm basically in that position. Okay, and we'll feel that stretch down the lower half of the quad. So that's lengthening, strengthening the areas. But I get, you know, a lot of people, when I tell them, can you squat? They say, oh no, my knees hurt when I squat. And it is usually just because, like we've talked about in the past, they're squatting with their knees shooting forward. Okay, so all the pressure's going through the front of their knee. And that's if they've got good alignment when they squat. Obviously, some people the feet are wide and the knees come inwards and they're having medial knee pain. But the key is pushing the hips back so the knees stay almost directly over the ankles when we squat. Okay, it shifts the pressure to the glutes, strengthens those up. It's still going to strengthen your quads and lengthen your hamstrings, but it's not going to just put all that pressure through the lower quads. All right. A progression from the squat, once you've been doing, say, a few weeks of squats and building up your ability, with a bit of weight, you can move into a single leg squat. Now, this is different to doing it against a wall. Okay, we're no longer trying to strengthen the outer of the glute, we're trying to strengthen really the back. So a good single leg squat, similar to the double leg squat, we're not letting the knee shoot forward. Okay, we're bringing the hips back and coming down. This is different to the deadlift I showed you, where I'm keeping the knee quite straight. Here we're keeping the chest higher. We could have a bar on the back, or we could have dumbbells to make it harder if we need, but the range is also a lot less than what most people can achieve with a double leg squat. Some people like to show off their pistol squat where they'll come all the way hips to floor. I won't do it today. I'll leave it for the barbecue tomorrow night or something after a few drinks. But yeah, single leg squat, it's a good exercise, but you just got to be careful. Don't work on going too deep. Just come down carefully, keep everything in the right place, then strong back up. Again, that's more advanced than your standard double leg squat. We can move on to lunges. I would typically start with a backwards lunge or a step up before going into a forwards lunge. It's going to put less pressure on the knee. So the backwards lunge, we're reaching back, leaning the chest forward, keeping most of the weight through the heel of this lead leg. Again, that knee's not shooting forward, the torso is upright, but allowing us to put pressure through that lead leg, strong back up. Again, once we've done a few weeks of that, we can then progress on to your forward lunge. This is the one that can cause a lot more stress through the knee if done incorrectly, because if our momentum's moving forward, then generally the knee will shoot forward when that foot hits the ground. And we don't want this. You see this all the time if you look out for it in the gym. People come down with a forward lunge, the knee will shoot forward, and then they'll use that knee to push themselves back up. It's all lower quad, okay? It's all the muscles that are wrenching on this kneecap. So we want to take pressure off that, and we do it by creating more of a vertical force down onto the floor instead of a forward. So by lifting the knee up a little bit and coming down on the foot, we can keep that knee directly above the ankle, just drop the back knee, and then coming forward again. A safer option actually is to step forward, then sit yourself, come down, and then drive back up. All right, or you can even break it down to 4 steps: 1, 2, 3, and 4. But your most aggressive to work towards is that high knee down. Okay, again, we're trying to work through the glute, but we are still going to strengthen the quad with good mechanics.